Hello and welcome everyone to the latest edition of the Renny Show. Hello, Jenny.
Hello, and it is so good. I can't tell you how much I've missed you, and it's so good to be back, able to breathe and everything. I'm so delighted to be here.
I mean, I'm thrilled that you can breathe. That's good. That's a really, really good thing. And it's so lovely to have you back. I've missed you dearly on the last show. I mean, it was a fabulous conversation with Ryan, but I know how much you would have just loved to have been there, and we really missed you. So welcome back, and really, really pleased that you're feeling so much better. That's good news. So, as always, folks, if you're listening, full disclosure, we're not actually broadcasting live today because we're both going to be at a wonderful networking meeting of the Fab Business Club. So we're pre-recording so that we can get to do both amazing things, but still bring you your fortnightly dose of honesty and positivity. As always, we love to carry on the conversation. So if you've got any comments, then please do leave them on the various platforms that we broadcast on. And we would love to know what you think. So, Jenny, shall we go for it? Shall we dive in?
Absolutely. Who's going first?
Why don't you go first? Welcome back.
Well, my first question is about variety. So, they say, don't they, that variety is the spice of life. Um,
Yes.
and my question is around, um, are you a lover of variety, or are you a lover of um, routine and, you know, doing the things that you love, the same things that you love, rinse and repeat? So, are you a variety or a rinse and repeat kind of person?
Love it. Okay. I think I'd have to come down on the side of variety. However, there's a good dose of routine in there as well. I think, as with many people, I think there's an element sometimes of comfort zone and keeping things simple. But I think that's one of the things I love so much about being self-employed is the variety. There is so much opportunity to not have to be stuck in the same routine. And don't get me wrong, if people like routine and they have that routine and it's important to them, then that's wonderful. I'm not knocking that for a single moment. But I do like the idea that there's always some opportunity and there's always a chance of something a bit different. So yeah, I think I'd come down on the side of variety on that one. How about you?
Yeah, I'm a bit like that chocolate, it's that thing about, do you buy a variety pack, or do you buy a block of, I don't know, Dairy Milk or Galaxy?
Yeah.
And I recently discovered by accident, because I didn't have my glasses on and I was in a hurry, and I picked up in a shop what I thought was a block of Dairy Milk. And
Yeah.
when I got home, it was I think is it called Willy Wonka's
Something like
Magnificent
that.
Bar or
Yeah.
something. And you when you break the square, they're firstly they're not squares, they're random chocolate portions,
Yeah.
and each portion has a random thing in it. So you don't know whether it's a popping candy, or it's a jelly baby, or it's a smartie, or whatever it is, so
Yeah.
completely random. And when I've obviously, I was expecting to open the block of chocolate and it just be a block of chocolate, that I'm used to, so that routine, and imagine my surprise when it wasn't. But I love it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is so exciting. So
Oh,
I think there is, um I think, and I should have said at the top of the question, that one isn't better or worse. They're just
yeah.
different, aren't they? And each a routine has benefits and uh, great things about it, and so does variety. And there isn't a right or a wrong. It's just an interesting question to think about, whether you like your routine. And I was watching a program on the news yesterday about this couple who had been going to the same holiday destination for 27 years.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and since, they, or well, maybe it was even longer than that, but they love it. And they
Yeah.
say, although the destination's the same, their experience every year is different because they are different people. So you can
Cool.
bring
Yeah.
variety into routine because we are not the same people, even if we repeat the experience. So that was my little gem, that I was considering this morning was, oh, even if we do the same thing, it isn't the same thing, is it? Because we're not the same people
Absolutely.
the next time we do it. So we get a
Yeah.
different experience, every time we do the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a lot to be said for a balance of both, because like you say, there isn't one that's better than the other. And for me, one thing I've really realised since leaving the RAF, which is obviously a relatively strict and hierarchical place to be, is that I like an element of routine, but not too much. If there's too much routine, I don't like it. I back away from it, and I crave that variety. So it's really interesting to see how that balance can work and how it can change depending on the scenario that you're in as well. It's really interesting one to start the show. Thanks for that, Jenny. Okay, so my next question is there's a couple of things that sort of brought this to the fore of my mind. One of which was that you had family visiting recently from America, and there's it's summer holidays as well, so there's lots of people who are balancing lots of different things. So, have you got any top tips for balancing family and business? Now, obviously, in my case, my children are younger. In your case, your children are older, but you've also got grandchildren. So it brings a whole new dynamic. So I'm really interested in any tips you might have for balancing family and business.
I think, the first thing to say is that, um, again, it's kind of linked, isn't it, to the
Yeah,
routine and variety.
yeah,
Um, I remember, when my children were little, that the summer holidays loomed long and large, and that I was incredibly fortunate in it was a long time ago, but I was incredibly fortunate that my parents, were at that point, able to support and eke out. And we had I had a very, very complicated calendar as to who was going where, when, and how you could juggle,
yeah,
because there is that line about wanting to entertain, and give the children a fabulous holiday, but also recognizing that, particularly, as a business owner, that you want, you have to continue your business, don't you? So I
yeah,
think there are things to consider. So what can you automate,
yeah,
is a really good thing to consider. I also used to, flexible working before flexible working was invented.
yeah.
So rather randomly, I used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning,
Wow.
because it's daylight quite early in the summer.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I used to get up really early, 4 o'clock in the morning, when everybody else was asleep. And I used to work from 4 o'clock in the morning until in my pajamas, before working in your pajamas was a thing as well. Um, 4 o'clock in the morning till 8:30. Um, and then I'd feel that I'd got a chunk of stuff done,
yeah,
and then that meant that I could unapologetically be focused on the children, doing things with them. And then there is also something about teaching them, that, mummies and daddies and, caregivers, have a responsibility to work.
yeah,
And I think, one of the things that I was able to do was to share my love of my job, and how much it meant to me, um, to give that to to share that with my children, so that actually they also um, recognize that working is a part is an important part of life, and
Yes.
sometimes it's a juggling act. um and I think it teaches people to be able to be self-reliant, so that
Mm.
playing in the garden, my kids were brilliant at making up games in the garden. We lived in the middle of nowhere, so it wasn't easy to kind of get on a bus to go places. We had to
Yeah.
make our own entertainment. So they were really, really good at making up games, helping themselves to food and drink. Might they like locusts through the fridge? Um,
Yeah.
but I think making it a shared responsibility, so that everybody understands that it's give and take on both sides, is a really helpful thing to do. Um, so that you've got, again, a balance, haven't you, of
Yeah.
doing exciting things, people entertaining themselves, um, asking them to help in some way, shape, or form, so that everybody contributes in some way to making that balance work.
Yeah, definitely. I'd have to agree there. I think for me, the key first thing is use of a shared calendar, which even my eldest is now a part of. Um, so it's that awareness, making everyone aware of what the commitments are and when they are. So obviously for me at the moment, it's school summer holidays, so the kids are at home, and very much enjoying a mixture of doing activities, but also wanting to lounge on the sofa or lounge in bed and have a lay in and whatever, all sorts of different things. But the key thing, particularly when it comes to me and hubby, is balancing who's doing what when, because we both have different work commitments, um, and making each other aware of that, I think, is really important. And as we speak right now, while we're sat here recording, the youngest, she's sat through in the living room watching something on the TV, keeping herself amused because her sister's still in bed. So they're not making up games or anything exciting this morning. But that when you spoke about the self-reliance of being able to take responsibility for what they're
Mm.
doing, whether that includes getting their own breakfast or whatever that looks like. Those are all really important lessons, and I like the fact, sometimes, yes, it can be overwhelming, it can be quite a juggle to mix business and life in times like summer holidays, but some of the lessons that it teaches your children about taking responsibility for yourself, taking responsibility for having a business, and sometimes needing to put that first to get the work done. But that doesn't, helping them to understand that that doesn't mean that they're not important. It just means that there is a balance to be struck between the two, and that mum isn't always going to be available, but that's okay because, they're resilient and independent enough or they have learnt to be resilient and independent enough to be able to, get on and do something productive if mum and dad aren't available.
And I think I have three sons, so for me the additional um lessons, if you want, were around that it isn't automatically mummy's job to do the
Yeah.
cooking, washing, the ironing, the cleaning, that it's a family, it's a shared
Mm.
responsibility, and that, making I remember getting my first coffee, or my first cup of tea, that they'd made me, and
Yeah.
it was so they were so proud of the fact that they'd done it, and I was really chuffed that they had thought
Yeah.
that I might really like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. So I think you're absolutely right, teaching them those skills, and the sooner they learn them, the more they can practice them, can't they?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Love it. Okay. So, what's your next question for me then?
Um, my next question is a weather question.
Ooh, okay.
As it Weather as in, not whether we do one thing or the other. So it's been quite rainy here today. And so my question is, what's your favorite thing about the rain?
Ooh, okay. I'll just get that up on screen. So, what's your favourite thing about the rain? Um, Generally speaking, I mean, I'm quite happy with rain if I'm protected from it. If I've got my umbrella or Mac or whatever. Um, but I think the the best thing about rain and the best thing about having young children at the same time is it does remind you that jumping in puddles and getting soaked is actually really fun, and that, you know, skin is waterproof. So actually, if you're not protected and you get really wet, that's because actually the fun that you can have is just way beyond any getting wet. So, you know, I'm a real mixed one on that, I think, because for me personally, I like to know that I've got my umbrella or my Mac or whatever to keep dry. But you know, because my youngest is still of an age where she does want to jump in puddles, that's a great reminder that when it does rain, that actually, you know, live for the moment and forget the things that don't matter, because getting wet doesn't really actually matter, does it?
No, I love that. They just make me smile because I'm a real sun worshipper. I love the
Yeah.
sunshine. Uh, Summer, it feels that summer has been a long time coming this year,
Yes. Yes.
and I've loved there's nothing I love more than leaving the house without without a coat, without an umbrella, without that. Oh, I have to be covered for all eventuality kind of thing. So I love it when I don't have to think about that. So this morning when I woke up early and the rain was beating off the windows, and my initial thought was, oh, and then I thought, but actually there is something incredibly cleansing, isn't there, about
Yeah.
rain? And you know, it washes away the, you know, mud off the pavements. My flowers in the garden were looking a bit thirsty, so
Yeah.
I love the fact that I don't have to go out now with a watering can because they've been well and truly watered. So I think finding it would have been easy to sink into the, oh, it's raining, oh, it's
Yeah.
raining. And you're absolutely right. I had to go out, and I didn't take an umbrella. I just ran because I thought, how wet can I get? Well, actually, the
Yeah.
answer is quite wet, quite quickly. But as you say, it doesn't really matter. You know, I didn't, as my mum always used to say, you won't melt. Um,
Yeah.
you won't melt if you get wet. So yeah,
So
favorite
true.
thing about the rain for me is that I won't melt.
Yes. Skin is definitely waterproof. Although that in itself leads to a discussion in our house, because I said that once to the kids about getting wet. Doesn't matter, skin's waterproof. And my husband said, "Well, it's not really, is it?" Oh, shush. You know, to the degree we need it to be, it's good enough. It's good enough. You know, I mean, yes, skin will absorb some water. I get that, but for, you know, for the purposes of being outside in the rain, skin is waterproof enough to not be an issue. So yeah. But that's always a whenever it rains, that's very much a conversation that gets repeated in our house. It's a bit of a standing joke now about whether or not skin is waterproof. Um, okay,
Excuse
okay. So my next question for you then, Jenny, is obviously, you know, we've talked a little bit this morning about business and balancing business and life, and you know, the weekend is traditionally the time where we might have more time available to do the nice things, the hobbies or the family time or whatever it might be. So, what's your favourite thing to do at the weekend?
me. Oh, um, that's tricky because I have such a long list um, of things to do at the weekend. Um, I think my favorite thing to do, if I had to encapsulate it in a nutshell, is exploring with with friends, because I like doing that. So whatever that exploring might be, it might be um, going to National Trust property, or going to a craft fair, or going some kind of exploration of um, a place or a thing. So it might be an art gallery, it might be to a play.
Yeah,
I know that's close to your heart. Going to the
yeah,
theatre, going to the cinema, going to visit gardens, uh, a restaurant, anything, exploring that thing. Back to the variety.
yeah,
Um, I think the key thing for me is to be doing it with friends or family or both. Is my very favorite thing. Um, so it matters less about what the exploration is. The absolutely most important thing is that who I'm doing it with.
yeah, absolutely, and that echoes my thoughts as well. I mean, there's kind of two things for me, because the weekend is traditionally for me the time where I can have a lie in, which is always lovely, not having to set the alarm. Um, but again, weekend, because there is more what you might call traditionally free time away from business. I mean, it doesn't mean that business doesn't happen at weekends. Sometimes it does need to, but there's generally speaking a bit more time available, and so just doing anything as a family is wonderful. Whether we've talked about going for more walks locally, just because that there's so much lovely countryside where we live, so much green, and obviously fresh air is such a good thing for us, isn't it? So um, it's not dissimilar to what you've described in terms of being out and about in some way, but it's the who you're with. Uh, Having the freedom to do those things with family at the weekend is just priceless. Um, and I think for a while now, our weekends have been really quite busy because of show rehearsals and things for the girls and I, and that's ramped up massively. I mean, this weekend in particular, it's chock full of rehearsals and time at the theatre because the show starts next week, which is mildly scary. But having the brilliant thing about weekends is, for me, I guess the word that comes to mind is freedom, because the weekends feel like freedom. So having the freedom to choose what you're going to spend that time on, and sometimes might be nice to actually just all sit in your pajamas and have a duvet day and not do a lot. But if you're together, that's okay. It's so yeah, I very much echo what you've said about it's who you're doing it with that's the key thing. But there is something nice about getting out and about and getting some fresh air on a weekend. Yeah, definitely. So I think we're on the same page yet again, Jenny.
Oh, that's a surprise.
Surprise, surprise. So what's your next question your last question for me for today?
Final question for the day. Yes, so my final question is about um what scares you most and
Ooh,
how do you deal with it? Is that two
blimey.
questions?
Okay, I'll just get that up on the
A
screen.
two-parter.
Yeah. Um, what scares me most? The thing that's scaring me right this moment is that my laptop might run out, so I'm just going to plug it in. Um, but no, that's not the thing that scares me most. Um, the thing that scares me most is really, I mean, in terms of business, because that's the first thing that came to mind when you asked the question, is the business not growing to the level that I would want it to grow to, which then brings with it a certain level of financial freedom and time freedom, and that can sometimes, but I'm sure that's something that a lot of people feel. I talk a lot about self-belief, but that doesn't mean I don't have self-doubt. Of course I do. I'm human. But I think when you have those moments of self-doubt, it's looking at the things that you've already achieved and, looking at yourself and really considering what you're doing and why. And when those things align, that you're doing something that you're passionate about, it really means something to you. When you also develop really strong self-belief alongside that, it's easier to sit and reflect and think, well, okay, yes, there's barrier X, Y, and Z to me achieving what I would like to achieve. But what can I do about that? Come up with positive actions that you can take that are going to lead to the results that you want to have. I think for me, cultivating really strong self-belief has been so important in my life, particularly in recent years when it's been more of an important feature of my life. And it just makes it just takes the edge off. It makes it slightly easier to deal with that self-doubt. You still have those moments, of course you do, but for me, it's that deep-seated belief that I know I'm doing the right thing. The things that I do in terms of coaching and speaking, and in terms of doing our show, which I love, I know it's not wrong. I know it's the right thing. I know what I was put on the earth to do, to be able to reach people, to spread messages of positivity. And when you have that belief in yourself, even in the down moments, you can pick yourself up and think, no, remember why you're doing this. Remember how good you are at this. And remember that this is something that you're passionate about doing and therefore can't be wrong. When it's right, it's right, when everything aligns, in the way you feel about something. So yeah, I guess the message there really is that cultivating really strong self-belief is the backbone or the foundation, if you like, to dealing with the things. There's nothing wrong about having things in life that scare us. It's good, that variety and those different emotions. Fear, you can actually use that fear. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. So yeah, self-belief is what it comes down to, I think, for me. How about for you?
What fabulous answer. Um, I think I've read a lot recently on social media, and one of the things that scares me is loneliness.
Yeah,
And you read a lot about it, and it seems like that the world can be an incredibly lonely place, although there are lots of
yeah,
people in it. And I think for me, how I deal with that is another gift that keeps on giving, a bit like self-belief, is that self-awareness. So
yeah,
understanding where that where that fear comes from. And there's a very big difference, isn't there? Which I really learned a lot about in lockdown. There's a difference, a really big difference between being alone. So I
yeah,
live alone, but I'm very, 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 very rarely lonely, and
yeah,
that's because I understand myself,
yeah,
and I understand what I what what are the triggers, if you like, for loneliness. And so if I understand what they are for me, because they'll be different for different people,
yeah,
if you understand what your triggers are, then actually you have the power and the choice to do something about it. So um but yeah, I've read such a lot lately on social media about loneliness, and
yeah,
it breaks my heart that as
yeah,
human beings, um, we are we have such potential in our connectivity because we have social media, we have FaceTime, we have Zooms, we have all this means of connecting with people all over the
Absolutely.
world, 24 hours a day. And yet people are feeling that there is that we've lost in some way that power of human
Mm.
connection and human emotion. Um, and obviously, as somebody uh, whose business revolves around connection and communicating, and this show revolving around positivity and how we connect as human beings, I'm always fascinated when I read about the level of loneliness in a really busy, packed world. So it says a lot, doesn't it, about how we're choosing to live our lives.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a timely reminder for all of us about connection, and that, do you know someone that might be feeling a bit lonely, and can you do something that might help them? It's it like you say, it's there's a difference between being alone and actually feeling lonely. And looking out for that difference in your friends is a really important thing, I think, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it takes it, I think the other thing is that when you are feeling lonely, reaching out to ask for help can feel like a big deal.
Yes,
And so having somebody who reaches in
yes,
um, is can be incredibly helpful.
yeah, priceless. Yeah, yeah, love it. Okay, so it's time for the final question. Slightly more light-hearted in terms of topic. So obviously we've had just over the last couple of weeks the Paris Olympics. So my question is around. Oh, I can't get it up on the screen. Something's going wrong with my laptop. Never mind. I will continue anyway. So did you enjoy the Paris Olympics, and did you have a favourite moment?
Oh, 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 you're gonna make me choose. Variety being the spice of I love I loved the Olympics. I didn't watch as much of it as I would have liked. Uh I think my favorite thing and my favorite moments are always about people um who have raced, competed their hearts out,
Yeah,
whether or not they made the medal podium. It's that absolutely. And I think um one of there were so many favorite moments. It's so
yeah,
hard to I cry a lot at the Olympic. I
yeah.
I cry a lot. Um and I'm just so in awe. And we've got the Paralympics
Oh, I can't
to
wait.
look forward to,
Yeah,
haven't we? So I've just about got my breath back from the Olympics, and then we've got the Paralympics. I'm very excited about that. But I think it's recognizing the um, the level of commitment and
yeah,
the joy of that people have in their chosen sport, whatever that might be. And I watched BMX final,
yeah,
and the athletic, the rowing. There's just so many, isn't there? So many amazing. All of them are amazing, and I think. Um, that when things don't go to plan,
yeah,
and even when all of that work, and it could be 400ths of a second that separates, so the separation is infinitesimal, and the way that that sportsmanship for me is
yeah,
so fabulous. And I remember Fred, the lovely Fred, and his daughter
yeah,
in the diving,
yeah,
when they got their bronze medal, and she was so, on one level she was so disappointed, and she said, but I did my best. And he said, um it wasn't your day today.
Yeah.
I just thought that was such fabulous, loving wisdom,
Yeah.
delivered with unconditional love and support. Today, it wasn't your day today, the inference being there will be other days. And it was just so support, and but none of it took away from all the fabulous things that she had done. Um, and I just I'm so full of awe and admiration for everybody who's involved in Olympic sport,
Yes.
all the people at the stadiums, all of the people who get crowds from here, there, the people who provide all the unseen here, unsung heroes that
Yeah.
get people in and out, that direct people, the people on the metro, the people serving burgers and drinks and wine and whatever, all of those people who are involved in making such a spectacular event happen and keep people safe, and the joy of human endeavor and commitment. I just yeah, I cry a lot. My heart's full, and I absolutely love it. I just think it's such an amazing thing.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, I would echo a lot of what you've said about human endeavor and the grit and determination that these people show over quite often periods of many, many years, the sacrifices they make to be better at what they do. And then, they kind of put everything into this, 4 yearly cycle of the Olympics. And, and when it doesn't work out for them on the day, you do have to feel for them, because like you said, that the difference between getting a medal and not getting a medal can be so tiny. And so you think, well, they all deserve medals just for being there at all. um, but to see one of the things that I just really love is some of the reactions when people do get their medals, no matter what colour, and even if it's not someone from Team GB, so it's someone that I'm not supporting in particular, but to see the joy on their faces when they get that medal put round their neck. And if they're lucky enough to, well, I say luck, it's not luck, is it? It's skill and talent. But if they're lucky enough to be on the top step of the podium, then hearing their national anthem, and I think there's just a wonderful sense of togetherness about the Olympics, because there are so many nations taking part and everyone's there for the same reason. It's quite rare that there's that many people together in one place for one thing, for one common aim. And it's, yeah, I just think it's so impressive to see the effort that people have gone to. And when you hear some of the backstories and some of the struggles they've had, I was really shocked when one of the interviews with Keely Hodgkinson that won the 800
Mm.
meters, that she had a tumor in her brain that led to her being deaf in one ear. And you just wouldn't know that, would you? When to see her run, you wouldn't have a clue. You'd think she's fully fighting fit. Well, I mean, she is fighting fit, but to think of the challenges that a lot of these athletes have faced because of the level they do their sport to. There are so many things, injuries, all sorts, life changes that can really get in the way of their training, and yet they still step up to the plate and they do their thing and they achieve all these incredible things. And it's just, I'm a bit the same as you. I find the Olympics quite emotional, because when you see the reactions that all these athletes have, it's just magical. And I think, that there were moments in the Paris Olympics where there was quite a lot of criticism from different quarters about different things that went on. But I think none of that should detract from the sheer brilliance of all these people who came together and just put on such a show. You know, I think many of us are the same, that we watch sports we would never dream of watching normally, and you get really into it and really excited for, you know, for the results, and it's close and you're cheering them on at home, and you know, clapping and cheering and jumping around the room. And it's just a brilliant thing, and how wonderful that sport can bring so many of us together like that. It's a wonderful thing.
And I love the fact that the athletes support each other. So
Yeah,
you know that that they support and commiserate because they understand that
absolutely.
somebody didn't get the result that they wanted, or they were, you know, beaten, or they didn't or if they won, and they celebrate that sort of level of support of each other. Is amazing as well. I think that's a really important part of it. And I
Yeah,
remember reading, you know, I think it was a marathon, the 1500 meters, and one of the, not in the Paris Olympics, the previous Olympics, where um one of the guy who had been leading and was
yeah,
expected to win just got disorientated, and he thought he'd crossed the finish line, and he
yes,
hadn't.
yes,
And the
I
guy who
remember.
came second kind of basically didn't push him, but you know, guided him over the line, and
Yeah,
everybody said, you could have won. Why
yeah,
did you do that?" And he said, "No, he was the winner. He was the winner." And they said, "Yeah, but you could have beaten him. You could have, you know." And he said, "But what kind of win would that have been?"
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
um, because you know, the only reason um, that I would have done that is at the cost of him, and
yeah,
he was the winner. He just got disorientated for a moment, and kind of lost his way and stopped. So it is that thing, but the humanity, back to that human
yeah,
connection, that
yeah,
depth of understanding and fairness and sportsmanship, and support is just phenomenal. I think the athletes, you see a lot of that, don't you? Supporting and
yeah,
commiserating and congratulating, and um, yeah, there are so many magical moments.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely, and so many more to come with the Paralympics.
Yes, I know. So what a note to finish on, is we have come to the end of, gosh, doesn't time fly when you're having fun? We are at the
Absolutely.
end of the Rennie show for today. As we said at the top of the show, this is a recording. This is a recording. So we're live in the moment, but
Yes,
you
we
will be
are.
watching it. You will be watching us recorded, but nonetheless potent for being recorded. We would like to think.
Absolutely.
We would also, as ever, welcome your thoughts, your conversations, your contributions to our questions. We love it when people give us the benefit of their thoughts too. So please feel free to get in touch and send us a message. And if you have any questions that you would like us to ask each other, uh, please pop them in a message to us.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'd love to have your questions. So, in the meantime, we will see you all in a couple of weeks, and get planning for what you're going to watch on the Paralympics. I must admit, 2012, you know, how wonderful it was to have them in London. I was very fortunate to go to the Olympics and the Paralympics and had such a great experience. So, I will be very excited to watch. So, take care of yourselves, folks, and as always, be inspiring and be brilliant. And we will see you again in a couple of weeks.
Bye for now.
Bye.